I am so glad that I jumped on the opportunity last year to bake my own bread. Once you bake your own bread, it really changes your appreciation for that hot, wonderful, fragrant loaf of bread that appears in your house that you made happen, that you, your friends, your family enjoy so much. And I have to tell you, the toast that it makes the next day is just unbelievable. And it's an empowering feeling to know that, you know, these beautiful artisan loaves of bread that you see in the bakeries and the stores everywhere that you can make happen. And that's what we're going to do in this half hour of Living Today. So stay close and call in with any questions about bread baking. 866-675-6675. Joining us right now is the owner of Better Bread Bakery. Michael Bonczar is here to make some artisan bread at home. It's some of the no-knead style of bread, which is a style of bread that I do, but we're going to find out about the breakdowns of the dough, and do you need starter and the temperature and just the different techniques and the supplies that you need. Our guest grew up around an area that has a lot of regional bakeries. And just is an amazing story to tell, to share with you here on Living Today. Chef Michael Bonczar, welcome to Living Today. How are you?
Fine, Mario. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Tell us about the bakery.
Tell us about the bakery. Well, I'm strictly a bread bakery. I make specifically breads here, and then I make like a deli sandwich on the bread. So I'm sort of like a bakery and deli, and I keep it very simple. I only have 4 varieties during the week, and then on Saturday, my big bread day, where I did farmers markets back when that was in season, and had a lot of people come in. I make as much as 8, which is still kind of a low number, but it's a small-time operation here, so just myself and a helper. So that's what I could say about it.
Tell us about the style, the types of bread that you make.
The types of bread that I make. Well, the term artisan, you could certainly apply that to this sort of bread. The reason why I chose the name that I did, Better Bread, is you get better quality loaf of bread there, and you could go to a lot of places anymore, a lot of even big box retailers, even like a Sam's Club. You can get something that they call artisan bread, or at most supermarkets they sell something that's called an artisan bread. So I don't necessarily like to use that term, but
why is that?
No, just because, like I was explaining there, that the term is used so much nowadays, so loosely in a way, right? That it lost a little bit of its meaning, because basically it can be used on when referring to a bread that was made in a factory, but they still call it artisan. They can still use that name. Right, where no artisan probably ever laid their hands on it.
And you've been quoted in saying, don't do many things, just do a few things well.
That's right. That goes back to the whole simplicity thing of my offerings here at my store. So that's what I strive for. I try to make a loaf of bread that really it's a home run, if you will, as far as what that style of bread is. So, like, for example, I have those 4 base breads that I bake at my store.
Simply sesame, pecan raised loaf.
Right, exactly. Like the sesame is like sort of like your people come in looking for an Italian style of bread, but when they do that, this is what I tell them. This is what I have: a nice crusty loaf of bread with the sesame seed on there, very flavorful, and then on the inside, the crumbs, the inside of the bread is light and airy and very pleasant. It's a crowd pleaser, as I call it.
Well, tell us where the crowd should be rushing to. Where are you?
No, where am I? Well, I'm outside of the city of Scranton, in a suburb called Clark Summit, and Highway 6 and 11. They join up to make this road, 6 and 11, and I'm right on the main street of that town, right in the old part of town. It's a turn of the century town, probably from the 1900s. It's celebrating its centennial this year. So it's a formal, township. It was around before that, but it had its beginnings around then. So, you have that sort of style of architecture. It's not real old, but it's, definitely.
Sounds wonderful. And also, you said you grew up around bakeries. We're going to learn about that in just a moment. But tell us about the recipes we'll be enjoying here on Living Today, learning how to make thanks to you.
Okay. Well, the recipes are basically I didn't invent these, but the one I didn't invent, that's your typical no-knead style that was made famous on the New York Times.
Jim Leahy's?
Yeah, exactly. Other people tried, of course, taking advantage of and profiting from it by putting books out there and giving you recipes to try as well. But what I have to say about it is that it's so, I don't want to say easy, but it's if you learn some principles about baking, that you can look into any old bread baking book and gather some inspiration from other recipes and apply that to the no-knead style and make a loaf of bread that will have great quality, taste, and characteristics of that style of bread which you're trying to mimic.
And the ingredients couldn't be easier, everybody. Right. We're going to find out about those in just a moment. So if you bake bread, if you want to push you over the fence into the side that does, call now, and we can answer all your questions. 866-675-6675. I frequently make a no-knead style of bread, but I'm so curious. I want to ask you about some of the finer points in your particular recipe. But again, if you have a question, 866-675-6675. Let's fast forward, Michael, to the end process. When we pull this bread out of the oven, the differences that we will find, positive differences versus a home-baked bread versus one we purchase in the store.
Okay. Well, what would the differences be? Well, basically, one thing that you need to know about a lot of the bread that you'll buy at, say, like a supermarket or, I don't know, let's say even like a Panera bread, for example, that bread is a par-baked product. And what does par-baking mean? Well, typically what that means, it's either a frozen dough or it's a frozen bread, and it's partially baked 80% of the way, flash frozen, and this is all typically made in like a factory-like setting. And then they ship it out frozen to the supermarkets where they have the so-called baker. Take it out of the freezer, put it on a tray, put the tray in a rack, and put the rack in the oven, and finish it off the other 20% of the way.
Did you know, Michael, I had no idea?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people don't, but this is a multi-million-dollar industry. When I go into markets, I sometimes look at these products and see what's going on. Sometimes I buy them just to try them, see what's going on, and even some of them will be made in Canada. They're a product of Canada. These products are actually imported. You'll be buying a loaf of bread that's made, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 miles away.
And yet they make wonderful bread in Canada. It's just the fact that you're saying we should buy locally or make it ourselves.
Right. Well, yeah, if you make it yourself, and this is the point I try to get across to people in telling this, that while that certainly makes a great product and it's very profitable for people, it's worth their time to do what they do with it, fresh anything is going to be the best. And it just you can't deny that.
Should we measure or should we weigh when we're making bread, and why?
Oh well, you have to measure if you're going to get serious about baking bread. When I got it started in baking bread, I used to, of course, use the cups and the teaspoons and the quarter cups and stuff like that. And in baking, there's so many variables to begin with: your humidity, your temperature. That if you weigh your ingredients, that's one less variable you have to deal with, and you can repeat the recipe and
with confidence.
Oh yeah, exactly. You need the confidence when it comes to baking. Even here at my store, there's some days when I bake the bread and I'm like, oh yeah, today is a good day to buy this bread because it's even better than it normally is.
Really?
Yeah.
You run up the flag. Everybody, run over here right now.
Right, exactly.
I also learned that when you bake bread, and I love this part of it, when you pull it out of the oven, it kind of sings, it crackles and pops.
Yeah, that's the one nice thing about, of course, using this no-knead style is that it's able to mimic what the professional baker will be doing in his oven, which is what I'm doing, where you're using a steam-injected oven. There's these fancy bread ovens out there
which I don't have in my house.
Right. I guess you can get these home varieties of that, but it's very expensive. But what it does is that during the first 5 minutes of the bread baking process, you want to keep that crust moist so that you want to have steam on it, and that'll keep it moist. If you didn't do that, then it would dry out, and the bread wouldn't rise as well. So when you keep the crust moist like that with the steam, you get the optimal levels of, as it's called, oven spring, and you get the nice voluminous loaf of bread with the nice, as it's called, ear. It's like when you score the bread, that nice edge that you get.
That's the ear.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wow.
They have all kinds of names for things, but that gets taken to its fullest amount. And so, anyways, like you're saying, with the crackling, you get this crust on the bread that's as good as what a professional baker would be able to do in his fancy oven. And as the bread cools, that crust is starts to harden.
Yes.
And it gets cracks. It almost looks like a dry desert or dirt, if you will.
But it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Here's your chance to call and ask your bread baking question. 866-675-6675. We're going to find out exactly what vessel you should be using, how you should be shooting for a darker crust as well, and should we be afraid or more aggressive when handling the dough as well. We're baking bread with the owner of Better Bread Bakery, Michael Bonczar is here. Again, your questions, 866-675-6675. Let's all bake some bread together in a moment with Living Today. But first, before we go, I do want to ask you about the artisan bread. The storage rules, once you've baked it, how long it keeps in your house?
Well, there's a good, I heard actually from a customer today, a very good catchphrase. He said, is it freeze it and eat it. Freeze it or eat it. It's one or the other. Now, that's what you can get away with bread, fortunately, very well, is that it can freeze. Like I mentioned earlier with that par-baked bread, they can freeze it and ship it out like that. So what you want to do, this is what I tell people, is to store it for 2-3 days and cover it over with maybe a towel in a bread box or a bread drawer. There's special bags out there for keeping bread. That's what I sell my bread in. It's this micro-perforated bag. It's got these little holes in it that keeps the crust from getting damp. If you put it in a solid plastic bag, the moisture will get trapped, and that's no good if you want to maintain that crust.
Okay, let's quickly go through the ingredients of the no-knead bread.
Let's go through the ingredients. Well, it's very simple. It's yeast, water, flour, and salt. And my plain white bread, the reason why I call it Simply Sesame is because it's very similar to that, in that it's yeast, water, flour, and salt, and with sesame seeds on top of it. And for the home baker, what you want is you could probably go out and get King Arthur flour, a nice bread flour. You don't need to use that, but I find that you will, if you compare the two. I've done tests. You will find a difference in taste and in quality on the inside of the bread. You'll be able to tell exactly how. I forget, but I knew I could tell the difference when I tried it. So yeah, nicer quality flour will also give you better results.
And I'm interested in the recipe for the honey whole wheat bread. That just a tablespoon of honey will make a big difference.
Yeah, the tablespoon of honey. Now I'm a guy who likes simplicity. I would rather a sandwich or
a pizza pie, whatever you make with it.
Right, not be loaded. Because once you start loading things up with salt and cheese and herbs, I mean, no matter what, it's going to taste good because it's got so much stuff in it that it just it tastes good. But if you have something that's so basic, yet you're able to make it taste so great, that I find that's a better goal to shoot for. Now, the honey livens it up a little bit, and the other thing that you'll get is in bread making, if people have ever done this, like your typical Pullman loaf, your loaf pan type of loaf of bread, they tell you to add sugar. And that's not so much for the flavor as it is for the browning of the crust. So when you add in sugars to breads, to doughs, I should say, that's what you get. Right. You get the crust will darken quicker because the sugars are caramelizing, and when you add more to that you get that quicker, and you get a deeper, richer color when you do that. Now, also, since you're using your honey, you get a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of a sweetness. You could up the honey if you so choose.
And we do have the recipes available if you write to me, livingtoday@marthastewart.com. We're thanking the owner of Better Bread Bakery for the recipes and the nuances of baking your own bread at home. Michael Bonczar, thanks for joining us here on Living Today.
Yes, you're welcome.
And we'll be back in just a moment with blogging today. Keep it here.